The following is a presentation of the BellyUp Sports Media Network.
1420 Sports Bar Podcast, for beer with sports talk and a whole lot more. Join host Brent Radlinsky as he bellies up to the bar and gets the conversations going that'll make you think you're sitting in your local watering room. It's sports, beer, and shenanigans, so sit back, grab a few beers, and let's get into it. The 1420 Sports Bar Podcast, for beer with sports talk and a whole lot more. Tonight's show is brought to you by SeatGeek.com. Promo code 1420 SEAT at SeatGeek.com today and save some $20 on your first purchase. Remember, we are part of the BellyUp Media Network. Go to BellyUpSports.com for all their great podcasts and great articles, and a lot of them are written by tonight's guest, Eric Katz, the one and only baseball writer for the BellyUp Media Network. Eric, how are you doing tonight? The Yankees are halfway there, living on a prayer. How's it going, Eric?
Good, quite well, Brent. I was actually waiting. I was counting down. I was actually wondering when you would approach me to come back on the show, given the excitement surrounding the Yankees with them taking out Kansas City in the division series, and now an early 2-0 lead on Cleveland.
Yeah, 2-0 up. The last night's game was a little bit. It was a win. A win's a win, no matter what. And I was excited to have that win. I saw you. I don't know if it's called tweeting or Xing anymore. How you do it, but there was some cause for concern. But we won't dwell on the negative right off the bat. We'll get into the positives. The Yankees had a fantastic season. Everything went right for them. They were right where they're supposed to be. The money does talk a little bit. No matter how much money you put into a team, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And the Yankees seem to have everything rolling. What got the Yankees, in your opinion, to this point where they're 2 games away from going to birth in the World Series, and then to maybe having a chance of winning one since first time in 2009?
The bullpen. I think the offense. It's doing just enough to win at this point. But to me, it's still lacking the big hit, because there have been points in the playoff series where the Yankees could have broken the game open early. And, that's something that they were good at this year, but haven't been able to put it all together yet. Yeah, they've been able to get some runs here and there and kind of spread that out throughout the game. But to me, there are games where I feel they're still leaving a lot of runners on base. But to me, the bullpen, everybody said going into the playoffs that the bullpen was going to be a massive problem for the Yankees, because it was for the second half, where the Yankees were having some issues there, particularly with Clay Holmes. But to be truthful, the bullpen has been their saving grace. Clay Holmes in the 7th inning has been lights out. Who knew? And then also Luke Weaver went from, he was originally supposed to be like a back end reliever, but then he kind of worked his way up and became a high leverage guy, a very good high leverage guy. And then all of this next thing you know, we blink and he's the closer, and he's showing that he could probably be a very good closer if you let him have it all year. And Tommy Kahnle, well, he's been doing his thing all year, hasn't really gotten rocked, with the exception of what happened in the first game against the Los Angeles Dodgers.
The thing I like about that bullpen is it's kind of been by committee a little bit, and it's the way the guys have come out of nowhere. And you think about Weaver, I think he pitched for 5 or 6 different teams last year, and he's kind of left for dead a little bit. And that happens throughout baseball, where guys get a shot here and there, and Weaver's taken full opportunity he's got, and the moments don't seem to be too big for him, which is huge in baseball. I know in my era was really spoiled with a guy who was the moments were never too big. He came in, the games were over, and it almost seems, and I'm not going to put him in that echelon as of yet, but Weaver's becoming that poster boy, like, oh man, this guy's got something going on here. And there seems to be a lot of confidence. Even after game 1 of the ALCS, they weren't afraid to throw him out there for a 5-out save, which doesn't happen very often in baseball anymore. What's your thoughts on Weaver coming out of the abyss, per se? Like, holy cow, this guy's he's the guy right now.
Well, I liked what the Yankees were doing. They finally put, for obviously Clay Holmes' inconsistency, it became a little too much, and they kind of went bullpen by committee a little bit. Luke Weaver proved all year he's a capable arm, and he was there's not really like the setup guy, really an official setup man really anymore. There's really just, they kind of throw it in like on a matchup basis, or whoever's arm is fresh nowadays in the high leverage department. And to me, like Luke Weaver has just, Luke Weaver always had the stuff, and he's stretched. He's been a starter before, so he's got that advantage of being stretched out where he can pitch, where unlike your average closer, he can pitch like in more than one game. Like typically closers can go nowadays 2-3 games, then you'll want to rest them. But Luke Weaver used to pitch every 5 days and try and get up to try and go from about probably be 80-ish pitches to 100-ish pitches. So he's already stretched out and used to that. So that he's kind of has that advantage going for him where you could throw him in there for a multi-inning save.
And I was just thinking about this. I've just been thinking about the Yankees a lot when they're in the playoffs and getting closer. Everybody does when their team's getting close. When your team has a chance to win, it absorbs your every minute of every day. The thing that about this Yankees team is, and I saw you tweeted or X'd or tweeted or whatever it's called earlier today, where people are complaining about Yankees' road to the world to the ALCS and where they are now, and they're playing. The American League Central is not that great, but they're playing teams that got there because you can only play who's in front of you. But will the way the Yankees are handling this postseason and the way the schedule kind of got set up for them, because you remember in the ALDS, because they got obviously the wild card off, and then the ALDS they played on Saturday night, day off, played Monday, day off, played Wednesday, Thursday. Is this going to put a little bit more of a maybe we should try to win the division and not just make the playoffs? Because if you look at how it's all set up for the Yankees, because of the way the TV schedules and Sunday Night Football is like we can digest this whole thing a lot. But the way this is set up, Eric, and you watch a lot of baseball, you're right, baseball, it's consumed your life more than it has mine. Will this Yankees run a little bit have other teams maybe saying, you know what, maybe we should put a lot more effort into winning a division?
I don't think so, to be truthful, because just before the Yankees went on their run, every first place team was complaining about having the playoff bye, how like they might have momentum and then all of a sudden it'll be halted. So I don't think really that's going to change, because just before, all of a sudden those first place teams who won their division or either got the first round bye or whatever, were complaining about having the bye to begin with, particularly one Brian Snitker in Atlanta, who was most vocal about it. So I don't think that's really going to change very much. I think it's just a matter of, like how baseball plays out. Depends on what you do between the white lines.
It's quite crazy how it's all turned out. The way the Yankees, they weren't great. That Cole was not awesome by any means in the initial games of the series. Like, he was bad, not great in game one of the ALCS. He was great in game 4, and then he was just what he was a lot in this game last night. What's your thoughts on how Garrett Cole has been so far for the Yankees in these playoffs?
A little bit of up and down. I mean, we saw what happened against the Royals in the ALDS in game 1. He wasn't great. He was kind of all over the place there. He was walking guys. I mean, fortunately enough, and actually he was hit a lot harder against the Royals. So I'd say that was probably his worst start of the postseason. I think in game 2 last night, again, he wasn't hit as hard, but he had some trouble with the walks. And, eventually when you put enough ducks on the pond, one of them's going to score eventually. But I think I think it's been a little bit up and down. Probably say, I'm not sure if inconsistent is the right word, because he still left the Yankees in a position to win. So it wasn't like it was the end of the world there. I just think that I just think it was probably just a little more. I'm not borderline inconsistent, because, he had that start against Kansas City in the last game where he mowed him down left and right and almost went 8 innings.
Do you think that, Erica, like you're a Yankees guy through and through, like obviously you're right about other baseball teams on and on. The Yankees have a very good shot at winning something. They made an acquisition at the deadline, went and got a Jazz Chisholm Jr. And I've been a bit down on him a little bit for he's vocal. And I'm not against guys talking and guys popping off a little bit, but eventually you got to put your money where your mouth is. And he hasn't been great last night. He got that double in the seventh last night, or sixth it was. It didn't hurt them. It didn't help them. Anytime you get thrown out on the base at second base with none out, it's never a good sign. But it does Chisholm got to start to maybe be the guy to maybe, okay, if you're going to be good, be good, and otherwise shut your yap. And maybe it's time for the captain to maybe say, listen, man, like this is New York. This is the big time. This isn't Miami where you can just say whatever you want. And let's maybe until you prove something a little bit, maybe just tone it down just a touch.
I think the idea in Kansas City there was he kind of wanted to just take the pressure off Judge, which I think that it was a little strategic in Kansas City where everybody's just focused on him while people are forgetting that Judge hadn't even gotten a hit in the postseason up to that point. So I think there was a little strategic there by Jazz, but to be truthful, Jazz has been kind of driving me nuts as of late because, he got picked off on the face pass, which again, I mean, they got to run out of the deal. Great. I'm good with what Volpe did there. Because Volpe's fast enough to make that happen. But it would have been nice to have two. That way you might, I mean, I don't know if they would say Weaver, but you might have a night where, you don't need him or you throw in, or knowing that you have a day off, you burn Canely for a couple innings. But, I think had Volpe not come around to score, I think more of a big deal would have been made out of.
There would have been a lot more talking about it by the talking heads like me and you today, for sure. And because I was down here down the Yankee Tavern North watching the game, and I was like, where are you going? Like, where are you going?
Like
you're not change the game by being off the base, by trying to steal third. You have a rookie pitcher on the mound. He's probably crapping his pants a little bit because Eric Sabrowski actually played in the WCBL here, a league that I umpire in just 5 years ago. So his butt cheeks probably clench a little bit. Yankee Stadium, big moment like that. And for Chisholm to get picked off there, that could have been a really, really big moment that could have really turned things around, because the Yankees weren't great last night. They were good enough, and they got the job done, some late runs. And Cleveland now, like the Cleveland loss, obviously they're down 0-2. But the thing I like about this Cleveland team is Ramirez. He got that home run in the ninth, which is a buttercup home run. That doesn't mean a bunch other than padding the stats a little bit. But I compare Ramirez's home run a lot to Judge's home run, that both of their big guys kind of, okay, you know what, that we're the guys right now. What's your thoughts on where that late home run that the Yankees gave up to Ramirez? Where's your thoughts that maybe that's something that, because Ramirez had some loud strikes in the first couple innings against Cole that were just really long strike one, strike twos, but a tweak of the bat here and there, those could have been home runs that could have changed the game a lot. Ramirez is he's on it, and that home run might change things a little bit for the series. I'm not saying that the Cleveland's going to win, but it didn't hurt seeing that their big guy got did something a little last night late.
Yeah, because the Yankee, and I'd probably say the Yankees as well as the Tigers did a great job of shutting them down, because ultimately I've been saying it the whole time is, don't let Jose Ramirez beat you. Let somebody else do it. And obviously, always. Yeah, because Jose Ramirez is, tremendous talent, all-star caliber player, borderline MVP, or borderline, MVP vote getter anyway, just because that's
borderline Hall of Famer if he can put together something. It's one of those things.
Right. Yeah, I think he could be on his way to becoming a Hall of Famer if he keeps up what he's doing. But the thing is, that's the guy you want to shut down, because he can turn the game instantly. And the Yankees have shown right now that they're having trouble hitting with runners on. And they're Gleyber's able to get on, they work walks, they do their thing, but the big hit hasn't come. Sure, they've sprayed some runs across, but eventually you're going to need the big hit. And Jose Ramirez was swinging the bat well last night. And, eventually he tagged Luke Weaver for a home run. But, I'm curious to see whether he whether he is able to put together, because I've seen plenty of guys homer, and that's all they do. But so I'll be curious to see what kind of adjustments the Yankees pitching make, knowing that, Ramirez at that point was overdue.
Yeah, and well, speaking of overdue, Aaron Judge finally got the monkey off the back a little bit with the home run, a deep home run to center field, and it was good. It was good to see because there was a lot of at bats. The game one against Kansas City, game two against Kansas City, game one against Cleveland, where the first two guys got on, and you think Judge is going to come up, and all of a sudden it's going to be 3-0 or minimum 1-0, and nothing happened. And happened last night again, and the drop fly ball that should have been caught would have been the exact same result. The home run by Judge may have put a little bit of relief in the Yankees fans and Yankees brass eyes a little bit. But I'm still a bit concerned. And that home run last night was huge, obviously. Right. But when you get runners in scoring position early, and when you can, especially when you have teams with great bullpens, and most teams have great bullpens, right. And you want to get to them early. Judge not getting those early hits to put when he's been given ducks on the pond, when he hasn't got it done, it's a bit concerning to me.
Well, he does have those couple of sacrifice flies, which I wouldn't discredit those, because those runs obviously are important. Matter. So I wouldn't say he's done completely nothing. I mean, sure, we're used to people go to the ballpark to see Aaron Judge hit home runs, granted, but I think hopefully that home run last night where he got it off his back, we can start to see Judge go on one of those tears we're used to him seeing on, because people have said it before. It's one swing of the bat and he's back in it. He's that talented.
Like I'm an old school guy. I don't mind the get a guy on, bunt him over, and then steal a base and then a sac fly. I don't mind that at all. I like that part. I like that part of baseball. Everything else. One guy that I was a bit shocked that got in the lineup because they didn't. You don't want to say you don't miss a guy who's won a World Series as a team leader, but they didn't miss Rizzo a whole bunch. I mean, you miss a guy like that. I'm right. Downplaying a little bit, but the way Rizzo has been really good. All his running gaff last night, we won't talk about that a whole bunch, but Rizzo's been really good for the Yankees in these two games against Cleveland. I don't think you can put enough stock in how much it benefits a Yankees team with nobody's been there yet. Like nobody's championship yet. Like back when the Yankees were winning World Series every other year and every year or whatever it was, or going to the World Series and having a chance to win something. I don't think you can put enough of whatever what I'm looking for, having a guy who's won a World Series, especially in a situation with the Chicago Cubs back in 2016, and how that must have been just nerve-wracking to begin with. I don't think that having that can be it's invaluable having that kind of guy in the locker room.
Right, because you got a guy who's won it before and knows what it takes to win a world championship. You got a guy who's had success in October before. Funny enough, he's actually having success now despite having 2 broken fingers, and hitting the ball on a cold night, which can be unpleasant if you hit it wrong, where your hands will start vibrating a little more after hitting something like that. I'd say, but yeah, I mean, you get a guy who's been there before, it's invaluable. I mean, you got a guy who's knows what it takes. You got a guy who's a proven performer in October, and it's just, you can never have enough of those guys wandering around the clubhouse.
I remember that World Series with Cleveland, obviously, back in 2016, and he was Molson. That's 8 years ago, and he was a young pup back then, and he was before, I think it was Game 5 or Game 6, and they recorded him talking to Cubs catcher, and now he's a manager with David Ross, and he was talking, man, I'm revved up. I can't. And Rossi, Grandpa Rossi, old guy back then, was basically saying, dude, you got to shut up. Like, just relax. Like, I know it's hard to just relax, but you just got to take in the moment and not do it. Like, having those guys, and I think that's what the Yankees were so good for so long, right. Back in the mid 90s to when they were, 2009 is the last time they won, but they had that calming influence around the locker room, and that's what Rizzo brings to a lot of these guys, because like the Yankees have guys who are older, and they have some guys, but they have a lot of guys who haven't been there before, and having a guy who's won a championship, and then their manager was there in 2003. And it's 21 years to the day, actually, that Booney hit that home run.
Yeah.
I still remember exactly where I was, jumping up and down on a bed in northern Alberta, and that whole thing, the way that game, one of the greatest baseball games I've ever seen in my life. But like having Rizzo, like, he's not going to hit you a ton of home runs anymore. He's going to play some good defense. He's going to play some great defense. He goes 1 for 3, 1 for 4. I think that's good enough for having that voice in the locker room.
I think you got to understand where Rizzo is at in his career. He's in his middle 30s. So he's old by baseball standards.
He's young. He's young, Eric, compared to me. He's young. I like that. I wish I was 34 years old again, but whatever.
Well,
we can't be young forever. It's the way it works.
I mean, yeah, because growing old is mandatory.
Yeah, that's the way it works.
But I think Rizzo is starting to we're starting to see that, like, he's starting to get into the beginning of the twilight of his career. I think that, I mean, he's, I think that's what's starting to happen. He's not going to hit you 32 home runs anymore. But he's a guy, he can still play defense, and defense is king in this league. And he's a guy that can lead. But to me too, because given that Rizzo his option is probably going to be declined at the end of the year. And if this is the way if this is the way to go out, this is the way to do it. But the fact that he's there in the clubhouse every day, talking to guys like Volpe and things like that, who have never been there before, and other guys in the clubhouse too. Obviously, that entire clubhouse mostly has never won, with the exception, which obviously Verdugo came close in 2021. But the fact that you have somebody there again is like invaluable, because he knows what it takes to win.
Let's move on to everybody's whipping boy every season, no matter what. He came in 2016, I think it was, maybe 2017. I know who you're talking about. Giancarlo Stanton, with all this accolades and the money and everything else, and people fail to realize, he's making a ton of dough, but a lot of it was paid by the Miami Marlins. And thank you, Derek Jeter, for the trade and eating a lot of that money. And maybe I got a story about that. There's a conspiracy. I like to hear it. There's conspiracy theories abound about that, because Jeter was gone shortly after that. No, whatever. But Stanton, he's been like, I'll be the first to admit, like, when he's up swinging his bat in the regular season, like, what the heck is this guy doing? And you're like, Jesus, man, like, enough. And some of his stretches get a little bit ugly, but he carried that team through the ALDS with some home runs and RBIs and doubles. He even somehow stole a base. I was shocked when that happened. What's your thoughts on Stanton? And he's another guy. He's on the twilight of his career, and he's got a couple more years of his contract. And I think he'll be done once if he can win one. He'll solidify his spot in Yankee fandom, and he'll get his just due, I guess. But he's always been the whipping boy, but he always seems to come up very clutch in the playoffs.
Oh, part of it is Giancarlo Stanton gets hurt a lot, and I think that's also because his body has been failing. And this year, he's, for the most part, aside from being out for 4 weeks, he's done a good job at keeping that under control for the most part. But again, we've seen what Giancarlo Stanton can do in October, and he's proven he can do that. He's, I think, 1 or 2 home runs behind Aaron Judge. So if that tells you anything, too, he was really the only guy getting the big hit against the Kansas City Royals. So if that tells you anything, but Stanton, though, I mean, he can go on an ugly stretch, but again, but when he's hot, he is hot. He's a very streaky hitter, always has been. He's, I don't think people don't realize it, but he's also, him and Yordan Alvarez are very similar players. They both have struggled with health. They're also both guess hitters, where they're going up there, they go up there and guess, which I don't like that kind of hitter. But with Stanton, if you guess wrong, it's going to be ugly. But if you guess right, the ball is going to travel a long way.
It's going to Queens. Yeah, it's going.
But Stanton's also a guess hitter. I mean, during the regular season, aside from his injuries, though, when he's in the lineup, he's proven he's a difference maker. And granted, he's not going to be Miami Marlins Giancarlo Stanton, where he blasts close to 60 home runs. but he's still a guy you'd want in your lineup because of just, he's still got the bat speed, and he, when he connects, he connects.
The guy that I've always liked, and he plays a bit lackadaisical, I guess is a term to put it. I've always liked the guy. Gleyber Torres is just a fantastic player, in my opinion. He plays a little bit lazy. He reminds me of an old second baseman that kind of signed for too much money, went elsewhere, and then he decided to take some performance-enhancing drugs. But we won't talk about him at all.
I know,
but you know what I'm talking about. But Torres is I think he's not great. I shouldn't say great. He's a really, really good player. And he's at the end of his contract and everything else. Is he playing for his Yankee life, or is he because why a guy would want to go elsewhere after playing his entire career with the Yankees? Why a guy would want to go elsewhere is kind of a mystery to me. I mean, I'm obviously a Yankee fandom and everything else, but it would be a bit of a kick in the pills a little bit to go somewhere else where you don't have a chance to play. Yeah, you might make a couple more bucks, but is Torres playing for his Yankee career?
No, I don't think that at all. I don't think it's Torres wanting to leave. I don't think that. It's, do the Yankees want him back is more the real question. And with that one minor leaguer they have, who we have yet to really see him do anything here with the big club. I know that Hal Steinbrenner talked about shedding some payroll in the offseason, but I don't think Gleyber's playing for it. I think he's playing for his next contract, wherever that will be. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am appreciative of everything Gleyber does. Yes, does he annoy you with his glove? Yeah, absolutely. But obviously the thing about it though is when he's hitting, his defense is great. But then when he's kind of slumping, his slump kind of goes into his fielding as well. And I know Aaron Boone got on his case good about it during the season, where he when he didn't hustle down to first base, he actually removed him from the game, which good for Boone. Obviously you don't want to publicly do it. You can't do what they did with Reggie Jackson and Billy Martin. You can't do that now, where you remove him mid-inning. That'll never fly now.
No, it'd be on Instagram and Twitter and everything else, like instantly. Not just two guys duking it out. It'd be duking it out over the airwaves. It'd be a lot different situation for sure.
But I don't think Gleyber's back. I think it's if the Yankees wanted him back, they would have been working on an extension. They didn't. And I think Gleyber's probably going to be playing baseball elsewhere. He'll get some interest. I'm not sure how much money though. I don't think he's going to touch the hundreds, but I think, a team that needs a decent bat in the lineup would, gladly sign him, I think, because he's not going to be that expensive. I mean, he's still a decent bat. He's not really the all-star player that he was early in his career, but he's still a good bat to have. Besides, I don't think anybody, to be truthful, I think the league kind of lacks defense nowadays.
Yankees up 2 going into Cleveland tomorrow afternoon, early evening Central Time. They have a shot right now, and if not now, then when? They have a shot right now. They've had a nice path to playoffs because of the way that the playoffs ended up, the way with Houston losing, like we alluded to, and Baltimore losing, like we alluded to. And you can only play who's in front of you. The Yankees have a definite shot, and Schmidt going tomorrow, and I think they went with Luis Gil for Game 4.
Yeah.
How confident are you that they might be able to like winning 4 games in a row at any point in the season against whoever is tough, and it no matter what, playoffs, regular season, it don't matter. Winning 4 in a row and losing 4 in a row, unless you're the Chicago White Sox, is tough. What's your confidence level the Yankees can maybe pull this thing up, get done in 4, get everybody rested up for maybe a World Series run against 2 teams who are riding the highway with the Dodgers and the Mets right now?
I don't see it, just because the average CSs have gone. If you were to average every single CS that's been ever played, it's probably close to at least 5 or 6 games if you were to average them all together. Since they started having the ALCS, I think Cleveland will probably steal one at home. But I don't think it will come against Clark, because Clark was fantastic against Kansas City. Save for those 2 runs, he pitched a fantastic game. He gave the Yankees innings. Sweeping a series is hard. But Fortunately for the Yankees, though, the way they played Tanner Bybee, it kind of became a perfect scenario for them where they made Cleveland go to their bullpen early, which, you know, I was hoping they would bounce Bybee early, but I didn't anticipate him going an inning and an inning and a third.
I think it was inning and a third. Yeah, I was shocked because I did a pregame show yesterday, and I was like, this guy's probably going to go 5 or 6, and then they're going to have their big 4 coming out of the bullpen, and then everything just changed, and I was like, holy Christ, this might get ugly early, and it didn't. But yeah, I was shocked the way that game turned out yesterday.
Also, you know, Cleveland starting Michael Boyd, who's coming off Tommy John not too long ago. They haven't really thrown him, have had him go multiple innings. They've kind of done 1-2 innings and done and gone over to the bullpen. Now they're going to need some innings out of them. But the fact that they had to go to their bullpen really early and the fact that they haven't got innings out of anybody, I really think Cleveland's in trouble here.
Well, and that's the thing. Like the Yankees have been, they have a very good, and what I laugh about, like this vaunted Cleveland bullpen. Everybody talks about Class A, and then the rest of them go on and on and on. This Yankee bullpen didn't give up a run against Kansas City. They gave up 2 so far in the 2 games they played with the with Cleveland. The Yankee bullpen ain't that bad.
No, it's been
like you said, the Yankee bullpen is what got him there.
No, it's actually been a great bullpen. Actually, the fact that they haven't had to use their long man yet, which I think is Marcus Stroman right now, and I think at some point Nestor Cortez is supposed to be back because he's throwing to hitters, so hopefully they can get him on the roster because that'd be a huge get for them. The fact that they haven't had to use a long man is pretty good. I mean, they really haven't had to. You know, even Jake Cousins hasn't even thrown really. The fact that they've been able to shut it down and basically go back to what it was like beginning of the year, that's pretty good, and it's starting to kind of vindicate Brian Cashman a little bit for not getting a closer at the deadline.
I tell you what, Eric, like I have full confidence the Yankees are going to the World Series, but if I see that number 0, because 0 is not a number, it's a lack of a number. If I see Stroman coming out on the field, I think we're in trouble. Like I haven't been a Stroman guy. He was great back in the Jays when they had that run in 2015, 2016. He was fantastic.
Wasn't bad with the Mets either.
Wasn't bad with the Mets, but there's just something about that guy that I just don't dig. And if the Yankees have to go to Marcus Stroman, he might be one of those guys if they have fallen behind a little bit, throw him out there, eat some innings, let's get out of this one. Like I just don't see him being a major factor in a victory. He might be a guy, an innings eater to get something out. I just don't care for the guy. And I don't know him obviously, but there's something about him. I just don't, if they're throwing him out there, it couldn't have went well. I mean, I don't think he's in the, let's put him in. He's not slotted anywhere on a victory night.
No, I think the Yankees are just have him there in case their starter can't give him anything, and they just need the long man to just kind of eat some innings and then kind of save the pen a little bit. He's gonna be that guy, but I don't see him kind of. And also, he might be the guy too if he wants to, if they throw him in there and if he can keep the Yankees kind of in the game, because the postseason, during the regular season, it's the starter. Starter gives up 1-2 runs, no big deal. Here, try and go 6 and save us. But, now if you're even in the slightest bit of trouble in the postseason, you're getting yanked. If you're, in the regular season, there's no way they would yank Tanner Bybee Cleveland would yank Tanner Bybee as long as they, like they did. He'd still be out there. Second. And he's obviously he's a good pitcher. I wouldn't call him an all-star, but he's still good enough to be an ace.
We touched on it briefly before we went on air here, but 21 years ago today, there was a Hall of Fame pitcher, Mike Mussina. He got thrown into a situation where he wasn't thinking he was going to get thrown into, because Roger Clemens came up with a stinker, and that's a Hall of Fame guy and another Hall of Fame guy. And all of a sudden, Mike Mussina got thrown in to Game 7, 2003 against the Red Sox, and he went, I think, 3 1/3 because he saved the day for the Yankees. And I said it before and I'll say it again, without Mike Mussina, we don't know who Aaron Boone is today. Like you have no idea who that guy is without Mussina saving the day for the Yankees in that great playoff series in 2003. And I was at Yankee Stadium when they put Mussina on in the
Monument Park.
Like Monument Park, and I was crying because I'm an old dork, but it was one of those things. And I was like, without Mussina, they don't win that game. And maybe that might be something that Marcus Stroman might come out of the pen and save the day for the Yankees. You just never know what could happen in the play, and that's what makes the baseball playoffs so great. It's just so many variables that can happen on a nightly basis. You just don't know who might be the guy to become a hero for 15 minutes of fame. You just don't know.
Well, the postseason is the type of thing where the guys you scoring all year, like Clay Holmes and Gleyber Torres, for example, the guys you scoring all year. Next thing you know, you want to give them a hug.
Yeah,
I guess it's just how New York works in general, where if you're doing bad, they'll let you hear about it. They'll dump trash on you, and then when you do well, they want to hug you, and then still dump trash on you.
It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Being the Yankees, obviously in their best interest to get this thing done early. Yeah. We'll get to predictions in half a minute. We'll take a little break and get to predictions. But who's been your MVP of the Yankees? They played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games so far. If you had to give out the award for the Yankees playoff MVP to this date, who would it be if Eric Katz was voting for the MVP with the Writers of America? Who would you go for there, Eric?
Wow. Especially with they only give it out for the CS. Boy, I got 3 that I'm trying to pick between because this one's hard.
Talk all 3 and then we'll talk about it. Why not?
Gleyber Torres.
Yep.
For one, I think Gleyber Torres certainly has an argument.
Gets on base a lot.
Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, he's the only one really getting a big hit right now, and also Luke Weaver, 2 or 3 multi-inning saves. I think he's just the third closer to do that. With I think Mariano Rivera was the last.
Well, what was it in '96? It was John Wetland who was the MVP of the playoffs, coming out of the bullpen, closing all those games out for the Yankees. Their first World Series in what was it, 15 years? So Wetland was the guy. So yeah, and I like the Weaver story, and that's what I like the most about that. I like the Weaver story for the simple fact that the average baseball guy and people, a lot of people who, they're casual baseball fans. They tune in during the playoffs, and people tune in. And as much as people don't like to admit it, when the Yankees are relevant, people watch baseball, and that's just fact. Because nothing brings 2 people together like this, like a third. That's just fact. That's just fact.
I actually wrote this on Twitter the other day that people kind of need because it's a known fact. A lot of people hate the Yankees. I mean, that's just a known fact. Yep. But it kind of shows you need the Yankees to be relevant because we saw what happens in the postseason when the Yankees aren't in it. The ratings are not nearly as good. I mean, even if the Mets were in it and the Yankees weren't, the ratings aren't nearly as good. And people aside from I think the Astros have kind of become that kind of team in recent years. Yeah. But before the Astros, if the Yankees weren't in it, there's nothing really to hate there aside from maybe rooting for your own team. But you kind of need the Yankees to be relevant. Otherwise, where's the noise?
I was doing something down here, the Yankee Tavern North, right, and something, and I was thinking about last year's playoffs, especially the World Series, and I went, who the heck? I watched every inning, and I watch everything, and it took me half a minute to think, okay, who the heck was in the World Series last year? And that's obviously it's just funny the way that all turns out. But when the big teams are in, obviously it helps. Yeah. I mean, it's sad because you could put 2 crap teams in the Super Bowl, people are going to watch. And that breaks my heart because I have my opinions about football. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but I think football is popular because it's popular. It's one of those things. But it's one of those. It's just the number one. I mean, it's the number 1 grossing sports league in America. I mean, it's been that way for a long time. Yeah. If you were Eric Katz tomorrow, he was named the commissioner of baseball. And the fix is in. Eric, you figure this out. We're going to find a way. We're going to find a way. Eric, you tell me what teams you want in the World Series. You got 4 teams left. You got Cleveland, you got the Yankees, you got the Mets, you got the Dodgers.
I'm going with.
You tell me what 2 teams you want in the World Series, and I will make it happen. What 2 teams is Eric telling the doomsdayers to make it work?
Well, first the Yankees for sure. With the Yankees, with the Mets and the Dodgers, it's tough because it's 2 teams I cannot stand, and one of them, the Mets, I probably make fun of to the point of borderline bullying. I'd say Yankees Mets. I want a Subway Series, and I want to see the Dodgers money go to nothing.
What would be a bigger draw nationally? Would it be Yankees Mets or Yankees Dodgers?
It would be Yankees Dodgers. East Coast, West Coast, the whole deal.
That would be huge. That hasn't happened since '81. I think it's the last time that happened. Yeah, that's right. Crazy.
Yanks took care of Yanks took care of them in 77, 78.
Yeah, 81, not so much, but it's crazy because that was the year of the strike. There was a strike year that year.
That was
and
a split year.
Split year, and then the CS was actually a 5-game series the way it all played out, and there was a lot of baseball history in there. And Eric, I'm going to say this. I'm proud of you. You're a lot younger than me, and you knew that. That's how much of a baseball historian you are. I'm proud of you because there's not many people your age and younger who know anything about the game of baseball, and I'm proud of you for that, Eric.
It was more. I know it was more harder to nose back then, and I'm from I was from the late '90s till now. So I remember when guys used to. I remember the guys, the catcher behind home plate. You just knew that. All right,
run him over.
I'm gonna get hit. I better hold on to this ball until obviously the unfortunate Buster Posey incident happened. Which, to be truthful, I was surprised they didn't do it earlier, especially with what Pete Rose did to Ray Fosse. It was hard nosed, but now, and starters used to throw, I remember starters throwing 120 plus pitches. But it's a different game now. Now they kind of view players more as investments now instead of just throwaways like they used to be. They're more viewed as investments nowadays.
Aaron Riley, friend of the show from Brutally Honest Sports. I had him on last Saturday on the great baseball talk. Boo Yankees, but unfortunately you're World Series bound. I think it's right. We'll get into predictions. I wasn't going to bring it up, but now that because I got a few years on you, and I want to because I talk like you go to. The best way to bring up a barroom conversation or whatever it might be with amongst not just baseball fans but sports fans. Mm-hmm. Passing of Pete Rose happened a couple of weeks back. I'd like to get a younger person's thought on Pete Rose. Let's not talk about whether he was a great player because everybody knows he was. Do you think he should be in the Hall of Fame?
No.
Thank you.
No, because. Yes. We're promoting gambling like none other nowadays, and sports gambling has now exploded, and it's going to probably be legal in all 50 states come in the next 5 years. He violated Rule 21. It's in every single clubhouse. They drill it into the players and during spring training, saying don't do it. Sometimes they make you read the rule out loud, so you don't do it. Yes, it's boring, especially for the veterans who hear it over and over again, but you violated Rule 21, which is you cannot gamble on baseball. You got caught. And also, if let's just say they do throw in Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame. Let's just say hypothetically they put them in. The crowd behind Joe Jackson will only get louder. People will want Joe Jackson in the Hall of Fame, and it opens up a world baseball does not want to open. And he's that would also be the problem, and also any of the other guys on any of those other men on the 1919 Black Sox, the noise would get louder, especially for Joe Jackson, because what happens to him?
And that's the thing. It's been a mesmerizing conversation since 1989 when he signed that agreement. It wasn't a lifetime ban. He was permanently. How did they word it? It was permanently.
He also lied.
And he lied, and he didn't do himself any favors. I personally think conspiracy theories, because he's not, and there was a lot of other stuff on the background that I personally think that Pete Rose, he didn't do himself any favors. He just wasn't a good guy. Like if he would have just been a nicer person after it was all said and done, he probably would have got in. But there was a lot of different stories that maybe he agreed to this because of this. So he just wanted to keep it quiet. And it's one of those. Yeah,
he lied about it for years, though. That's the thing. Even though he was clearly caught, and they had all the proof in the world to say that he did otherwise.
Yeah.
It didn't help though that he kind of rubbed baseball the wrong way when he wrote his book about him admitting to gambling back in 2004. That he set up a signing right outside the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Well, that's what I'm getting. He never did himself any favors.
It was a horrible look to say.
Like everything Pete Rose did was a horrible look.
And also Pete Rose in general had I mean, Pete Rose was good to fans. Don't get me wrong. I don't think the guy. But outside the field though, Pete Rose did some things that you would question his character for.
There's a great documentary on HBO there that I watched for the night of his passing. It was that Friday night, and I watched it. It's like, holy cow, this is this is telling.
They weren't going to put him in when he was alive because they didn't want to give him that satisfaction. But, I don't think they're going to get him in. He violates Rule 21, and which is written.
I think the biggest thing with Pete Rose is he was a dick, and
absolutely,
and just don't be a dick, and that should just go with in general how you should live your life, whether it's in baseball or podcasts or writers or whatever it might be. Don't be a dick.
In response to Aaron Riley's thing about he should be in the Hall of Fame as a player, not a manager. Well,
yeah.
That's he was never getting in the Hall of Fame as a manager, I assure you. But as a player, he gambled, he loses. Otherwise, if you put him in, what does that say to Joe Jackson? That crowd's just going to get pretty loud, and to me, it'd be the equivalent of giving Armando Galarraga a perfect game 10 years after the fact.
What a wreck. That's the word. Jim Joyce, a guy like I told you before, I umpire. That's a bad call. And the thing about that call, that blows my mind. Have a feel for the room, man. Like, because that play wasn't close. It wasn't. Like that was not close. But Jim Joyce, as soon as that ball was hit to Miguel Cabrera. Jim Joyce should have been to have his hand coming up to call the out right then. Just do it. Nobody cares. It was August between two teams going nowhere. Make the call, have a beer, call it good. Just get some feel for the room, the way that turned out.
Even if it's a tie to the runner, give the close call to the pitcher, because Armando Galarraga to that point, no one had even heard of him. And, he had that, but in a set.
The only reason why we know Jim Joyce's name is because of that horrible call he made.
He was also one of the better umpires of that.
He was good. Jim Joyce is very good. Like, I'm an umpire dork, so I follow umpires. I know stuff, stuff and things. And the only reason why we know that the general population know Jim Joyce's name with his walrus mustache is because of that call.
Also, they know Armando Galarraga too, because had the blown call not happened, let's just say he doesn't throw a perfect game, and it's just
if he gets a perfect game, no one knows who he is.
Well, no, they'd remember.
But perfect games go off in the past,
right? And he would have just, had it not been for the blown call, he would have just gone down as in the long line of pitchers fortunate enough to play Major League Baseball.
Yeah, Aaron Riley commenting on the YouTube here. Brent's an Angel Hernandez fan, a big Angel Hernandez fan. I am, because I am better than him, so that's why I'm a big Angel Hernandez fan.
I'm sure you are,
because I can say I'm better than him. That guy was in the big leagues. I'm better than him. I'm not an Angel Hernandez fan. He's an embarrassment to baseball for a long time.
He, that's the one thing that probably I think if there was one thing that can unite all of social media, every fan base on social media, from the Anaheim Angels all the way down to the Washington Nationals. It was Angel Hernandez has retired. I'm telling you, I posted a picture, that famous World War II picture of the sailor kissing the nurse in Times Square.
Yeah, no, he was awful.
He wa-
And the arrogance about him, that's what made it even worse. Everything he did was just terrible. But
Like if an umpire blows it and knows it, some umpires acknowledge that. I mean,
Yeah.
there are some umpires. I mean, obviously, sports. There are plenty of bad people in sports, unfortunately. But the fact that he would be like, he would practically just ignore it. I mean, there's a reason Kyle Schwarber slammed his helmet off and threw the bat down on national television.
Yeah, it's just like, dude, like enough. And I think that might have been the turning point for Hernandez to finally get out of it, because Schwarber was so mad, and there wasn't one person defending how bad he was, and how bad he become. It was awful.
I don't think it was really that. I think it was when Bryce Harper was
run down third.
Ran to him at third base and was actually flailing his arms around him, because I thought Bryce Harper was going to lift him off the ground. I really did.
Bryce Harper could have twist him into a pretzel. It would have been really, really bad, because
Bryce Harper gets ejected a lot, but that was a new level
One more question before we get to we'll take a little break here. A little mention from SeatGeek, but one more question now that you bring up Bryce Harper. If Bryce Harper were to decide tomorrow, you know what? I'm good. I got $200 million in the bank, or whatever it might be, and life's getting tough. I've been doing baseball for a long time. I've been in the media. I've been in the public eye since I was a junior in high school. I'm tired. Like, I've had enough. If Bryce Harper were to call it good, and Aaron, he'll probably, because he's a Phillies guy.
Forget him.
If Bryce Harper were to call it good tomorrow, is he a Hall of Famer?
Yes. I think what would be really missing from he's been an MVP 3 different times. He's actually 2 different times. He's been an All-Star multiple times. He's won Rookie of the Year. The only thing that's really missing from that legacy is a championship ring. That would
I think that matters a lot, Eric. Like, that's the thing. Like,
it's why Don Mattingly's not it. It's why Don Mattingly never got in, aside from the back. I mean, there are plenty of guys now who are in the Hall of Fame with a championship ring who had a similar career as to Mattingly. I mean, don't get me started on Donnie Baseball not being in, because there are plenty of guys in the Hall of Fame now, like a la Joe Mauer, for example, who had a similar career to Don Mattingly.
Mauer's not a Hall of Famer.
I mean, I like Joe Mauer.
I know Mauer played in Minnesota with not a whole bunch of fanfare and media and everything else, but Mauer's not a Hall of Famer.
I mean,
really good, really good.
Well, the problem was that what got him in though is he was just able to, the type of offense he sustained as a catcher got him in, because playing offense and being a catcher is hard, because that's why they moved Craig Biggio from catcher and moved him into I think the outfield, if I remember correctly, because they knew what he could do with his bat, and obviously he did that to the tune of a Hall of Fame career, and obviously very well deserving of that.
He went to second base for a while, but it's one of those things. Yeah,
because Craig Biggio was a very good catcher for that matter. But the thing about it is, there are so many people now who are in the Hall of Fame who had a similar career to Don Mattingly, injuries and all, who are in, and somehow Don Mattingly isn't. Don't get me started on that, because then I'll tell you how I really feel.
No, it's tough, because sometimes you got to put because you're a writer, so you got to put your fandom behind you a little bit and go, okay, well maybe, but Mattingly's a no-brainer to me. I mean, and the thing is that stats are stats, right? But your plaque says 3-time World Series champion or 2-time World Series champion on there somewhere, right?
Mattingly played for some bad teams too,
and because you play for bad teams, it's not your fault. Like, it's not your fault. Like, you remember back in, like, you weren't alive back then, but I remember watching games on the Saturday NBC game of the week, and there wasn't 8,000 people in the old Yankee Stadium. That whole upper deck was empty.
If you watch the doc, I'm sure you
remember, because they were terrible. No. They were terrible teams back then.
So they were always interesting, though.
Oh yeah, well, Billy Martin and everything. It was
also Mel Hall, if you remember him.
Oh yeah.
Which obviously he was just a terrible person, but still definitely kept the back pages of the New York Post always filled. There was some Mattingly also played for some good teams too during that time, but unfortunately they had no wild card back then. there was a year Yankees won 98 games or so. Good year nowadays. But that would get you in the playoffs now. But unfortunately, no wild card.
Well, look what happened in '94 when the season got shut down because they went on strike, and the Expos and the Yankees had the two best records in baseball. That Expos team they were stacked. I mean, you obviously weren't alive back then, but they were unbelievable. Young. They were stacked, and they were going to go head to head, and both teams had records that were just like head and shoulders above everybody else. And so
Expos fans will tell you to this day they would have won it.
I think they would have too. Like,
I don't think
really good.
The Yankees were good that year, but I don't think they were on that level.
They weren't great. They were really good, but not great. That Expos team was unbelievable.
I think
Hall of Famers on that team, like just wow.
Yeah, including don't forget about Marcus Grissom, not a Hall of Famer, but still a very good player. And they also had a very young Pedro Martinez, who was just starting to come into his time.
Because he left because he was in L.A. with his brother for a little bit, and they gave up. The Dodgers gave up on Pedro and kept. I can't remember his brother's name, but whatever.
He was actually, even Pedro will tell you that his brother was supposed to be the one.
Yeah, bigger guy. Yeah,
right. And obviously Pedro, he's a Hall of Famer and very deserving of it. I still think the Yankees will always be his daddy.
21 years ago tonight, it all came down.
Yeah.
Oh man, that whole thing still just brings a smile to my face. I might put that the wife doesn't know it yet. I might put that game on and watch that one. One tonight all over again.
My godfather was actually at that game.
Really?
Let's just say the stadium was up for grabs. The entire city was whipped because he was living in just outside of New York at that point.
Yeah.
The entire city after that was whipped up into a frenzy.
It was unbelievable. Like I've talked to people a lot over the years since it happened. When I go to New York, I talk to different people that talk about that game.
And people forget.
They felt like the building was shaking. They said
it is
after that home run was hit, and it just and then you hear Sterling's call and all of it, and just when Mariano went to the mound afterwards and collapsed, and that's. Right there is why I love baseball. Like obviously it was my team, but there's why I love baseball so much. It's just
Jorge Posada's clutch. Also, it helped that Grady Little kept Pedro Martinez in for a little too long.
All of it, like the way that the whole game played. We should do a podcast about that one day. It was like the way that game played out and everything, and how like it just the way that series ended up because 4 or 5 days before they had the little bench clear out at Fenway and.
Don
Zimmer and the whole bit, like just the drama and the hatred that the fan bases had and the teams had for each other. Like you don't have that anymore. You don't have players disliking each other anymore.
Not really.
They're hugging each other before games. They're just little high fives and bum slaps. So it's just different. It's just different.
You have feuds here, and you have it's not really team versus team anymore. You'll have individual feuds here and there. But it's not nearly what it was in 2003. It's not nearly like that where it would be where the entire teams hated each other. Now you just have individual feuds. Like I'd probably say the last really feud that was public was Vicente Padilla against Mark Teixeira for some reason.
Yeah,
where Padilla always pegged Mark and Mark hated it. I don't know why he did. He was never that good. Padilla wasn't even that good anyway.
Yeah, the wife don't know it yet. I'm going to rewatch that game tonight. It's 21 years ago today.
I gave my current event report. I had to do so in class. So in elementary school, we did something called current event, where we would, it'd be news or sports or whatever. They would weather, what have you, and they would assign you something. Well, fortunately for this Yankee fan, he was assigned sports, and I was reading it off in class about when Aaron Boone hit the home run off Tim Wakefield.
First pitch of the inning.
Oh, yeah. I got a story, too, about the Giancarlo Stanton acquisition when the Yankees got him. I was in college at the time. He had turned down. I was 2 hours outside. I was in college outside St. Louis. So 2 hours outside St. Louis. He had turned down an opportunity to go to the Cardinals, which, in hindsight, that was actually smart.
Yeah.
But at the time, though, the Cardinals were still the Cardinals had just
the Cardinal way, right?
Yep. They had just gotten Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt at that point.
Good players.
Yep. Obviously, Yep. And so when I found out the Yankees got him, because I didn't think the Yankees were going to go after him. I really didn't think they would.
The money was big. Yeah.
I knew they were in the mix for Ohtani, but I didn't think Ohtani would come over just because he had expressed interest in staying west, which, that's generally what happens with Japanese players because they want to be close to home, which, by all means. And when the Yankees got him, and after he turned down the Cardinals, I was in an IHOP restaurant, and when I saw it on my phone, and friends of mine are Cardinal fans, I looked up, they knew what was happening. My eyes got big. That smile that I normally have, when it was about probably this size then, a friend of mine got angry and was threatening to choke me in the middle of the IHOP. And he actually put me up against the wall. I'm in the booth. And because they were so mad that the Yankees got him. And then I went to class later, and I was just screaming because they got him. And it was around, and when they got him, it was a friend of mine in the middle of class, because I'm just in the back giddy, just dancing around, and he's just like, someone's having a little too much fun over there.
Yeah,
it was so great. I remember it. They were mad. It was great. I loved it, because especially when he turned down the Cardinals, because the Yankees and Cardinals didn't really play each other at that point.
Well, let's hope it pays off for the Yankees in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, where we got left. Anyways, the 1420 Sports Bar Podcast, for beer, sports talk, and a whole lot more. This segment is brought to you by SeatGeek.com, the SeatGeek app. Use promo code 1420POD, 1420SEAT. It changed. Man, I got to do it for so long with the pod thing. 1420SEAT at SeatGeek.com today, and save $20 in your first purchase. Joined tonight by Eric Katz, baseball writer for BellyUp Sports, amongst other things. Come right back to you after this word from SeatGeek for our predictions for the rest of the playoffs.
Join me as I take a deep dive into the least insulted ticketing app in history, SeatGeek. Did SeatGeek invent the ticket?
No, but we do make them work.
Drum roll, please. Ooh, how do I use the Seat View feature?
It shows seats with a pole blocking the view. Don't buy those.
What if I want to sit behind a pole?
Buy those.
Join me as I bore you to death with a series of interviews about a ticketing app that just does what it's supposed to do.
That's from our friends SeatGeek. Use promo code 1420SEAT at SeatGeek.com today and save $20 on the first purchase. Let's get to predictions there. Eric, what do you got going on? The Yankees are up 2-0. The Dodgers and the Mets are tied 1 game apiece. I'm not sure what the score is right now. Been too busy enjoying this conversation with you to worry about what the score is. But let's start with the Dodgers and the Mets. Let's forget about what the score is.
I'm going to go.
What do you think, Dodgers, Mets, and actually, is the Mets, are they a team of destiny a little bit, you think, before we think prediction is?
No. We've seen the Mets do this before, where they go on a little streak. They're skating around, all jumping up in the air, and they're ice skating, and they fall on their butts.
Yeah, because the Jeter documentary, when he said, like, in 2000 when they met in the Subway Series back then, he said they're the Mets. Like, they're the Mets.
Will be the Mets. I mean,
they're the Mets. We're
worried
about it. They're the Mets.
They're the Mr. Bill of Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
They mean well, but every time they try and do something bad happens to them.
Yeah, they're the Mets. Who wins that series?
I got to go Mets in 7, because I just don't think the Dodgers have the pitching to really hang like that. It's amazing how they spend all that money in the offseason
every year,
and they have no starting pitching somehow. And they should know better than anybody else that you need starting pitching in order to survive.
Yeah, every year, like they have that COVID championship in 2020, but nothing since '88, and I just don't have much faith in the Dodgers, and until they get it done, you have to have a bit of a doubt. And the way the Mets have been since that horrible start that they had, they've been really, really good. And I think the Mets are going to find a way to get to the World Series. And I think they're going to have but it
will be a long series, though. That's for sure.
I think that one's going 7. I really do. I think it's going 7. Let's go to the big one. Let's go to the one that we're most concerned about, me and you being Yankee fans, and everything else here at BellyUp Sports. Probably the only 2 real Yankee fans in the group. But let's. Who do you got? How many games? And how's it all going to turn out these next week and it's all over.
I'm going Yanks in 5. I mean, I think Cleveland will steal a game at home at some point, whether it be against Clark Schmidt or even Luis Gil, because we know, Luis Gil, as much as great as his stuff is, he also walks a lot of people. I think Cleveland's going to steal one at home. That's just generally what happens because it is hard to sweep 4-0. I mean, that's very difficult to do, even both during the regular season and the during the regular season where you're not managing nearly as much as you are now. But it's going to be a close series. I think it's going to be Yanks. I think it's going to be Yanks in 5. They close out at home because obviously, Dan Plesac said it best. Yankee Stadium is a house of lunatics.
I think the Yankees will win not I don't know the World Series. We'll get to maybe we'll have you on in between the World Series and the CS. But I think they're just a better team, and eventually the better team usually wins. Not always, but usually wins. And
not the pitching either.
And they don't have the pitching, and it's just kind of the way it's going to work out for the Yankees. And eventually, as Jeter said a long time ago, eventually the ghosts come across the street, and I think that's what's going to happen for the Yankees with this in this ALCS, because they haven't been great, and they've still won, and that's a scary thing. They haven't been great yet.
They haven't,
and they're due to have a couple of nights where everything starts to rock and roll a little bit, and when great teams win without being great, that shows a lot.
I mean, it shows you that something is funky there at Yankee Stadium. And I know all about the ghost, especially on that one hit, I think, by Rizzo when he hit it, which generally that ball bounces off the wall and kind of rolls in the grass for a little bit. Yeah. That ball just stopped. I'm telling you, it just stopped. I'm a real believer in those ghosts. I mean, you probably know about them when they in their vintage form in 2003. But that ball just stopped. I really think the ghosts are just arriving now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting several rolls. I hope there's one. And I'm not a big chase for 28 guy because this year is the one for me. It's not 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Although I'm going to watch that one from. I can't believe that was 21 years ago. My God,
I remember it very well too. I remember that really well. As a matter of fact, you might just give me an idea where I'll have a debate with myself whether I want to watch the Great Baseball movie 61. Or I'll rewatch the 2009 World Series DVD.
No, I got 4 screens down here, so I might throw one on this one. I'll put the Mets Dodgers game on it, but I'm going to put that 2003 ALCS Game 7 on tonight for nostalgia's sake. So give me a nice night. I think it's a long story, but the wife don't know it yet. But if she's in for the next few weeks of a Yankee baseball and everything's I hope it turns out for the Yankees. It's just we're overdue. Eric, we're overdue, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And once again, if the Yankees, and because the baseball isn't in everybody's realm anymore, when the Yankees are around and baseball is more popular, and because, like I said earlier on, nothing brings two people together like the dislike of a third, and the Yankees are the third. So the more people talk about baseball, I think the better off everybody is.
I mean, even people who don't even watch baseball know who the Yankees are.
Yeah, it's crazy. Eric, thanks for coming on, man. Like short notice this morning, I reached out to you, and I appreciate coming on the show for us. And we'll do it again. Maybe, like I said, if the ALCS. Actually, you know what? We'll do it no matter what between the ALCS and the World Series. Have you back on? Tell us about all your stuff. You got a lot going on. You're an award-winning writer, and I read your stuff all the time on BellyUp Sports.
Thank you.
What else you got going on?
Well, I have I got more writing going on right now. Right now with the playoffs going on, it's kind of hard to write. So I'm kind of working on stuff like for the off season for now, like about winning windows, especially the one I wrote about the Detroit Tigers. I think, right now there's just, you got to wait for the playoff to play out. Cause right now that's just the story going on right now. And, it's, until we get to the World Series right now, I just kind of have to wait it out.
No, it's going to be interesting to see how it all turns out. I'm thinking it's going to be, Jesus. I turn every 20 minutes. I'd rather see a Dodgers-Yankees World Series just because the all the stars, right? And the East Coast, West Coast. But I think it's going to be a Mets Yankees World Series.
I think so.
I feel bad for Cleveland. I actually do. Like, they haven't won since whatever year it was.
48.
It's been a long time. 48. So it's been a long time, and nobody's picking them at all. And that might be a dark horse. Like, you never know. Like, they could pull something out of their asses.
They don't have. Unfortunately, I mean, aside from the bullpen, they don't have the starters to do it. Their only real starters right now are Tanner Bybee and Alex Cobb, and the Yankees got to Cobb. And the Yankees knocked Bybee out of the game early. So it'll be Yankees and somebody. Yep, you can't just throw a bullpen at them every game.
Yes. Once again, Eric, thank you very much for coming on the show. The 1420 Sports Bar Podcast, 4 Beer Sports, talking a whole lot more. Take care of each other. More importantly, take care of yourself year round. Keep your stick on the ice and don't swing at high pitches. Eric, thank you very much again, and we will talk soon.
Talk to you soon.